My name is Betty Barkley, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make strawberry rhubarb pie. Strawberry rhubarb pie is a great spring dessert. Rhubarb is growing in Washington and upstate New York, all over. I was able to get some today at the farmer's market. I also got some strawberries to make the wonderful fresh pie. I'm going to start with the pastry. This is just a regular shortening. I'm using whole wheat pastry flour and regular flour. I've already measured them out. I like to sift my flour because it mixes in the ingredients and lightens up the flour. I have a teaspoon of salt. I have 2 2/3 cups of flour, half and half. And I'm going to go ahead and sift it with my mother-in-law's sifter into my bowl. Sifting is just a great way to mix up your ingredients. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do for the pie crust is I'm adding a cup of shortening. Now I'm using half butter and half Crisco. Butter tends to make the crust more tender. Crisco tends to make the crust more flaky, so hopefully we're going to have crust that's both tender and flaky. You can get Crisco either in these nice little pre-measured packages, or you can get the can that you measure it out. But this is a lot easier to make. I'm just going to use half of this. This is 1 cup. I'm going to use 1/2 cup. This is a pastry blender. This works great to cut the shortening into the flour and salt mixture. You're going to want it to be like this. You're going to cut the shortening in until the shortening is in small pieces. And that's what helps to make the flaky crust, having those little pieces of shortening mixed in with the flour. There are different kinds of pastry blenders. I just like the style of this one. It's easy to clean, it's easy to work with. A lot of people these days too use their food processors to make pastry dough, which is a very easy way to do it. I just kind of like the old-fashioned way myself. This is how I was taught in 4-H when I was a young girl. I like to use part whole wheat pastry flour just to make it a little bit healthier. Use those whole grains that are good for us. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, well, first of all, I'll show you. If you notice, there's some like little chunks of shortening in there. It's not all totally mixed up very finely, but you want those little pea-sized pieces of shortening to help you have the flaky layers in your crust. Okay, this is ice water. Use about 7 to 8 tablespoons. You don't necessarily have to add it all at once. Add it a little at a time. Stir it in. See how it's coming. But I don't want to mix it too hard. I don't want it to be tough. Okay. My pastry's just about ready. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to push the dough together with my hand. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it in half for the top crust and half for the bottom crust. And I'm going to wrap it in plastic wrap and put it in the fridge to chill a little bit while I make the filling. And I ripped off a big enough piece of plastic wrap so that I can use the plastic wrap to roll the crust out on. It just makes it a little bit easier, a little bit less mess to clean up as well. Now we're going to work on the strawberry rhubarb filling. I saved a piece of rhubarb out to show you what it looks like. Rhubarbs are stalks. They've been classified as fruits basically because it's very tart, you mix it with sugar, and generally you have it for dessert. So I'm going to cut it up in small pieces, basically like a 1/2-inch dice. And I already cut off the ends. Now I'm just going to cut it. As you can see, I'm using the cutting board just for safety. Don't want to get any blood in your pie. Rhubarb is a very, very tart plant. It tastes delicious with enough sugar, and especially when it's mixed with strawberries and all. Just reminds you of spring. I used to grow this in my home when I lived in upstate New York. It was really nice to be able to just go out and pick the rhubarb when I wanted some. But now I get it at the farmer's market and it's shipped in from Washington State. So I already chopped up the rest. I'm going to go ahead and toss this in. Okay, I'm going to be using about 2 cups of rhubarb. And you can have it a little bit over. It won't hurt. It's nice to have a nice full pie. I'm going to be making a 9-inch pie. I've already cut up my strawberries. I have about probably a little over 2 cups of those. And I cut them in, basically quarter them. You don't want the pieces to be too big. Just makes it easier to eat if they're a little bit smaller. Okay, I've already measured my sugar. I'm using 1 1/3 cups. And I'm using 1/3 cup of flour. And I'm going to go ahead and mix that up with my spatula here. You could also use a spoon, doesn't really matter. Whatever you have on hand. This is probably the trickiest part of making a pie. This is where you roll out your dough, put it in your pie plate, put your filling in, and then put an upper crust on. Now I'm going to put a little bit of flour on the dough so that the plastic wrap won't stick, and make it easier to remove the plastic wrap for it when I'm ready to put it into the pie shell. Just putting a little bit on because I don't want to get too much flour on it. Okay, I like rolling out my pie crust with plastic wrap. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to roll the pie crust out from the center to the outside, to the outer edge. You want to get it probably like close to about 1/8 of an inch thick. You want it to be able to fit in your pie pan. It should be okay. You want to be able to see the edge around it. Okay, now what I'm going to do is take off the top plastic wrap. And set it aside. I think it's thin enough. And I'm just going to place it carefully in my pie pan. And you want it to be hanging over the edges here. Okay, now I'm just trimming off the edge a little bit. You want to have it hang over like 1/4 or to 1/2 inch over the edge of the pan. And now what I'm going to do is put the filling in. Stir it up a little bit. The reason you have the flour in there is to thicken the filling up some. It will bubble up and cook and thicken your pie filling nicely. Okay. And then just spread out your filling evenly. go ahead and get the lattice and or the top crust and make that into a lattice. The reason we put the, you can put the flour in the sifter is just because it'll spread it out a little bit more. It won't be as likely to be like a clump. I turned the oven on to 425 to bake the pie, and it is preheated. And don't worry, it doesn't have to be perfect. The more you practice, the better you'll get. And if you really don't want to mess with the pie crust, there's prepared pie crust that you can get at the store. You usually find it in the refrigerator section, either Pillsbury or store brand. And then there's also the pre-made crusts in the frozen section, such as Pet Ritz. They also work well. I'm going to try to make this a little bit bigger and a little bit thinner, because I'm going to make the lattices out of this. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to use a ruler to make my lattice pieces even. You can either use a knife for a plain edge, or you can use one of these fancy schmancy little deals that have fancy edges. And I think I'll do that today. This one has a variety of edges. That one's a straight edge. Just make sure you don't cut yourself, because you can do that. Okay, so I think I'm going to make these about 1 inch wide. You can make them basically any size you want. Just gives it more variety. I'm going to dip in a little bit of flour. Now you also have some choices in how you're gonna, there's like a variety of ways you can do lattices. You can make them so they're right angles, or you can make them so that they're more of a diamond shape. You can try different ones, see what you like best. Okay, so this one is a little bit narrower, so I'm making that more towards the edge. You're going to want the widest ones in the center of the pie. I think I'll use this one. And you overlap them if you want. You basically are weaving here. Okay. My mother would always roll out the pie crust that was left and put it on a little pan and put a little bit of cinnamon and sugar on it, and you could get a little taste of the dough before the pie was done. That was always very fun. Okay, so now I'm going to trim off these edges, and now you can just roll the there's two different ways. I guess I'm going to roll it under this time. Make it look better. Okay, you don't really want it hanging over the edge. Okay, now you can make an edge. That'd be so pretty with the red strawberries and the green rhubarb. You can see that through the lattice. Now, if you want, you can brush it with milk. You can sprinkle sugar on top, just to give it a little bit more, make it a little more attractive. I'm going to put some sugar on. Okay, you've probably noticed that I'm blonde. And one thing that I just have a really, really bad habit of doing is I forget to put the butter on before I put the top crust. But all's not lost. All you have to do is just kind of, I cut the butter into little pieces and I put them under the lattice. And it'll taste just as fine, no big deal. And if you were to put a regular crust and, didn't have the lattice, I just slice little slices in the pie crust and stick the butter in. If it's hard, it makes it easier. The butter just gives it a nice flavor. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of turbinado sugar. Just sprinkle a little bit on the top and it'll make it look really pretty. Kind of like glittery. Which if you know me, you know that I like glitter. Okay, now it's ready to put in the oven. But I'm going to put a cookie sheet under it so that if it boils over, it won't make a huge mess of the oven. And in about 40 or 50 minutes, I will get it out of the oven and you can see the finished product. However, if it does start browning more than I would like it, I will put a piece of foil on the edge. Okay, it's been 50 minutes. The filling from the pie is bubbling away, which tells me that the filling is cooked. So we're going to pull it out of the oven. Careful, don't burn yourself.